Okay, great. Well, I'll go ahead and get started. Good to, I guess I can't see you guys, but you can see me. But good to be here with you guys. My name's Ken. I'm an alcoholic on a path of discovery and recovery. And it's truly an honor that this journey has brought me here with you guys today. And I'm going to talk for about 30 minutes about my path. They asked us to name our story, so I think I named it The Slow Surrender. And I was like, what was I thinking that day? Sounds like a romance novel or something, but it is kind of my story. It took me a long time to give in to my addictions, to surrender to my addictions. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that today. And I guess it was kind of funny when I did decide to get sober before I was doing step work or talking with anybody. I kind of had my own Jerry Maguire moment where I was like writing out, like, how did I get here and how did I get this bad? And, you know, why now of all times am I just kind of figuring out all these things about myself? And so one of the things I started with was like my family history and figuring out where this came from. And, you know, if I look back on my family history, and I know a lot of people out there are the same, but I don't know if it's to the same degree or not for you, but my parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, one of my two sisters, my mom, my dad, everybody abused alcohol or drugs or both. Every single person. My little sister did not, only because she has seizures if she drinks, or at least she used that for a very solid excuse because she never went down that road. My mom's biggest issue was pharmaceutical drugs, and she would chase them with wine and weed and like anything else. And, you know, so I remember almost as early as I can remember, really, 6, 7 years old, this being a constant negative presence in our house, and the drama that came with it. So good times, happy times, loud times, friends being over, followed by, stuff that you shouldn't see or be around when you're a kid, and she ended up becoming very suicidal, many suicide attempts, or at least calls for attention. And this went on through the years, and on stuff, off stuff. My dad was an alcoholic, but just a straight drinker. So he seemed kind of like the normal one. And my mom's best friend actually had an overdose and died. They never really talked to us about it. Just like one day she just, it was somebody we saw every day and we just didn't see her anymore. And so by the time I was about 12, my parents were having a lot of issues and battling their own addictions. And I was kind of free to do what I wanted to do, which was, I'm going to be honest, like in some ways was really cool. Like, I could come and go as I pleased. And some of that freedom led me down a path of meeting older friends and friends that could score drugs and alcohol. And when I say drugs, I mean, at that time it was just weed. But so I got kind of hooked drinking early, I would say. I was 12 or 13 when I started. I had a habit, I would say, by the time I was 14, but it was very controllable. I think the example I was trying to follow, that sounds a little strange, but the addiction example I was trying to follow, I think, was based on my dad, where he was a very work hard, play hard kind of guy. So, he'd work the 12-hour days, booze it up, drink 10 beers, 12 beers, 14 beers, whatever, and get up and do the same thing every day. And so my model of the world was sort of like, as long as you can handle your business, then you're good to go. And so this happened throughout high school and into the military after high school. And I kept being attracted to these environments that would continue to reward that kind of behavior of just go hard no matter what. And I could always kind of pick up the pieces. Just kind of looking through my own notes here. Around the time I got in the military, my wife Shannon, who's out there somewhere in the audience today, we had met prior to me going into the military. And then I went into the military, and again, the drinking was part of the culture. Don't want to blame the culture. It was just part of it, though. You certainly weren't an outcast for being able to put a few back and handle your business. But, even early on back then, there were cracks in the foundation. I had, I keep saying I was handling my business, but in high school, I wrecked 2 vehicles that if you looked at the cars, looked like I should have died. But I could always just sort of get out like Teflon Don of anything. I could always worm my way out, get lucky. Maybe the universe was looking out for me, whatever it was. If I never hit a bottom, I never even hit a contemplation moment, really. In the military, same thing. I would fly through the military, get ranked quickly, get promoted quickly, get busted back down for an alcohol related incident, get it back. I almost pride myself on that volatility, oddly, but it was just part of my identity. And so I got out of the military, I had a full-fledged, daily drinking. The only time, in fact, going back when I was about 15 or 16, the only time I didn't drink for a period of more than 3 days between, I would say, 19 years old and 52 years old was during basic training for the military. That would have been it. And that wasn't by choice, as you probably can gather. So, and now you're getting the essence of the title, The Slow Surrender. So this goes on. We start a business, and on paper, again, I can make things look good. We were successful and had a business and had a good marriage and started having kids. And my bottom, there was never a true bottom, I guess, back then. It was just constant erosion of relationships, creating burdens on my wife, setting the example I maybe didn't want to set for my kids, even though in many ways I did. In this way, I didn't. And I really still wanted to hold on to my drinking, that I would work really, really, really hard on the other stuff to keep it going. To give you an example, one time a few years ago, I drank 8 or 9 IPAs and ran the New York City Marathon the next day. And that may come off as like I'm trying to impress you. I'm not. I was pathetic. It was slow. It was sloppy. And I vomited all over the place. So it was nothing to be proud of. But my mentality was, if I can do this after drinking and you can't do this, whether you're drinking or not drinking, then you have no business telling me my business, basically. So as long as I can plow through somehow, some way, but it just wasn't working anymore. I started getting a little more enlightened with things like, that we learn here. I was starting to learn about yoga. I even started teaching yoga, and at the same time I was getting wasted and smoking weed and doing things like that. My world I had like 2 worlds going on that felt like they were coming together almost in like a collision course, and I had to pick one or the other. I felt like I was wearing out my wife's patience. I think just wore out all my drinking buddies and everything. And like nothing was fun anymore. It's I don't know what the right word is. Maybe like satiation, if that's the right word. I don't know. Someone could put it in the chat if I've got it wrong. I'm definitely not an English major, but it's like I didn't know what to do because I didn't know how to live life without alcohol. But it wasn't fun anymore with it. Like all the highs I was chasing and all the fun, it just wasn't there. It was so few and far between towards the end. And finally, a few years ago, about 4 years ago, on the side, I'm a trainer for Tony Robbins part-time. And so I got to all these seminars, these self-help seminars, and I've been in leadership my whole life. And I was like, I'm going to be a leader now in this community and help people. And I felt so incongruent because I went to this program called Leadership Academy, where we learn basically how to run groups of people at these seminars. And the night before this Leadership Academy is going to start, I got so drunk that I passed out. I missed dinner. The guy I was supposed to meet had to come find me in my Airbnb. I was so passed out that he couldn't wake me up. He was worried. I obviously was fine. I woke up the next morning, but I was genuinely scared. My behavior had just gotten more and more erratic, and I was less able to continue this facade of I can plow through it, or I can make everything okay. And so you would think that was the moment of surrender, and I guess it was the moment of the beginning of the surrender, and this is where the slow surrender part starts. So I made a decision that morning that I felt so out of integrity that I couldn't do this anymore, and I recognized that I had a problem, probably for the first time. I mean, I knew it in the back of my head, but I never really said it out loud. And I called my wife, and I called a friend of mine that was in AA, and I wouldn't call myself an alcoholic. For the first couple of years, even it was just more like, hey, I have a problem, maybe you can help me, maybe you have some ideas. Again, not surrendering, not at all doing steps 1, 2, or 3. And I got the level of help that I sought, meaning there were always resources there, but again, I wasn't ready to surrender. So I got people saying, sure, when you're ready, I'm here. And I'd say, well, I thought I was ready. Where are you? You know, and I'd kind of blame the helper instead of myself for those things. So I questioned my decision almost out of the gates. It was sort of like I could have continued to keep this up, but now I've blown it because I've told my wife, I've told my kids, I've, you know, it's out there. The cat is out of the bag, and now there's no going back. So now I'm a dry trunk at this point. This is 2017, and I'm proud of myself for maybe a week after making that decision. I'm empowered for maybe a week after making that decision. And then I immediately go into questioning myself, questioning the world, questioning my wife and the people around me for maybe judging too much or being too strict or whatever, you know, everybody else's stuff, not my stuff. And this led to constant chatter in my head, constant, all day long. In fact, in that Tony Robbins world, there's a program called Date with Destiny. And in Date with Destiny, we talk about everyone's pre-wired with a primary question that we ask ourselves all the time. And it's usually not great. It's usually not super empowering. For a lot of people, it's some derivative of how come I'm not enough? And if I'm not enough, I won't be loved. Questions around that. That's not what mine was. And maybe some of you guys can relate since we're in the same community. Mine was when I was drinking, it was when can I drink again? When is the earliest acceptable or even unacceptable time, but you know, way that I can again keep all the facades up and all of that, keep everyone off my ass and still do what I want to do. So when can I drink again? Until I was drinking, then it would be like, how much can we drink? And when do we have to stop? And then as soon as we stop, this whole cycle would start again. And when I decided to stop, the question was, why can't I drink? Why can't I drink? Why did I make this decision? So some version of that all the time running through my head, and the energy that all of this takes to focus on this. And this goes on and on and on. And I, of course, had a relapse. So I wasn't doing any work. I wasn't reaping any benefits of sobriety other than sobriety itself, other than abstinence, other than the alcohol not being in my system. And so I guess there were some benefits, you know, some behavioral things and stuff that I wasn't doing, some sorries that I didn't have to make. But in terms of like the riches of the universe raining down on me, which I was fully expecting, like, hey, I quit drinking. Come on, you know, show me some love. But I wasn't doing any of the work. So I wasn't getting love. I was just in the same cycle of addiction. I was without the medicine, but I was still in the cycle, still in the mental cycle, maybe even more, because there was no way to relieve it. So, or there was a way, but I didn't want to take it. So this went on, and I ended up after about a year, maybe 11 months of being sober. I strategically, like sometimes people say you have a relapse, and like to me, a relapse is like slip, like you're out and you just lunge for something. That's relapse. Mine was pre-planned. Mine was like, I'm taking a trip, and I believe that I may have, you know, my logic was I think I overcorrected here. I need to stop the chatter in my head, which just by nature of this conversation, you can realize that I'm pretty much a card-carrying alcoholic, but I didn't think so at the time. It all kind of made sense. So I was like, well, I'm going to go to this Tony Robbins seminar. I'm going to fly in early. I'll have some me time, and I'll just have a couple of beers and see how that is. And I did, and I didn't go crazy, and I didn't, wake up 3 days later in a gutter or anything like that. I just had a couple of beers, and it was boring, and it was sad. And the one thing that I had gained, which was some integrity back, I was now giving up. I was now becoming a liar again. And I let this happen maybe 4 times, I think, total, in between sort of my end of year one and end of, about a 12-month span after that. But for the same reasons I quit, it was just gone. Like the thrill was gone. It was like I wasn't getting what I wanted out of the medicine anymore. I just wore it out. But I still couldn't surrender. Maybe I could have. I don't think I knew how. I hadn't accepted a community. I hadn't been humble enough to accept a higher power or any of that. My wife, who's always such, just a great partner, and also somebody that gives me great advice in a non-threatening, not jamming it down my throat way, was like, hey, I think you really like this Tommy Rosen guy. And if she was here telling her side, she's like, I think I told you that many times. And I think she's right for sure. But one of those times I listened to Tommy Rosen, and I think at that time I was the definition of when a student is ready, the teacher will appear. Because as I listened to what he was saying, and as I read the 12 efforts over the 12 steps, which I did go through the 12 steps, but I did them very a la carte, which doesn't work, as a lot of you know. But I got to the 12 efforts and read Tommy's book, and then listened to Tommy's book, and then started coming to meetings last year. And I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was my time. I don't know if it was Tommy's words. I think it was Tommy's words that built this community, and this community that allowed me to be vulnerable, willing, whatever it was. And that combined with time. I mean, I think I needed enough time maybe to get sick of it all. But I remember I went to one R2O meeting, and I told Shannon, I said, this is my crew. This is what I've been looking for. They're speaking my language, and they're showing recovery, not in a way of abstinence. That was one of the things that bothered me, was like, I didn't want to just see like, oh, I haven't had a drink in 34 years. I'm like, congrats to everybody that's been sober for 34 years. But I'm like, okay, great. What did that do though? Like, what did you do with those 34 years? Like, if I'm taking away something that I really enjoy doing or used to enjoy doing, what is the benefit of having that taken out? And so I needed examples of people that were thriving in recovery, thriving in discovery, and I found it here. I also realized, and this was the part where I felt like true freedom and true surrender came in, was I was smoking weed. I didn't have like a weed addiction. Well, I didn't think I had a weed addiction. But as I'm listening to people talk, I'm like, well, weed is just sort of slowly coming in and taking the place of alcohol. Like, I'm still using it in the same manner. I'm still, that old primary question of when can I drink again is now when can I smoke again, or eat an edible, or whatever it's going to be. And I'm like, so on the second meeting, I came clean, and I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I am an actual addict. If I green light a substance that's mind altering, and I may start like very calmly with it, but it'll eventually become a habit. Maybe not as quickly as alcohol. Won't take me back there that fast because we have a longer relationship, but it'll get me there. But there was such freedom in that, because the weed was just another form of going, will I, won't I? Can I do this? Do I not have to do this? I was using weed. Well, maybe I'll quit alcohol, but I can do this. It's almost like going down the shopping aisle, and I've done this before, going, some of that kombucha has like 4% alcohol. Maybe I can sneak one of those in, right? Those were the thoughts for me of early sobriety. Those were the thoughts for me of not surrendering sobriety, and weed was part of that. And so on that day, and again, I think it was my second meeting in R2O, and I met Dale White, and I met some other really cool people here, and found my home and found that ability to surrender. And that was less than a year ago. And holy shit, like all the stuff I wanted in the beginning is happening, and it continues to happen. And some of it is just exceeding what I even thought could happen. I felt blocked in certain ways. Like I'm working my ass off, but things aren't happening the way I want to in my business, or you know, whatever it is. And poor me, and why isn't it happening the way I want it to, even though I stopped drinking? But I wasn't replacing the time I spent in my addiction with quality time focused on growth-oriented things. I was replacing it with addictive behavior minus the addictive substance. That's it. I didn't trade anything really. It was, you know, maniacal addictive behavior with substance, and then maniacal addictive behavior without substance. So the results were pretty much the same. Again, I just didn't have the drink to kind of take the edge off. So I decided, this is my crew, I'm going all in, and I did 90 meetings in 90 days, and that was amazing. And continue since then to normally attend like 3-4 meetings a week, and I host one now on Thursday. We went to Tommy's seminar in May to get more connected with this community and learn more about sobriety. And I'm truly at a point now where I don't regret anything. I like where things are. I love where things are right now. I know it sounds corny to be like, you know, hey, it's all part of the journey. But you know what? If I didn't do those relapses, like, that still might be on the back of my mind. You know, I'm not telling people to go out and relapse. That's probably bad advice, but I'm just saying, like, my story, that was all just part of it, and I'm cool with my story, and all of that played a part in it. So I'm running a little quickly here, but that's okay. More times for Q&A. So that's the end of it. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have. A little bit about us. Shannon and I, we've been married for 34 years now. We have 2 grown children. We live out here in New York City and Brooklyn. So we have 2 kids. We have 2 grandkids who are going to be here in like an hour in our house. We get to see them overnight tonight. And like I said, life's good. I'm so happy that, like, our grandchildren, they won't even really know that side of me. And with our kids, there's no long-term damage, you know, and I think they're proud that that I've turned that corner, and they were a big motivation for me to do that, because I didn't want to see them go down that same path. So, and I feel like they won't, and they're doing great, living awesome, productive lives now. So I can see the chat if you guys have any questions. I've got the Q&A up too. What always drew me to leadership roles? I don't know. That's one of those things. That is just one of those things as a kid. I don't know if some of you can relate, but as a kid, sometimes other kids would just be like, what are we doing? You know, and I'd go, we're doing this. And I guess I wasn't afraid to maybe make a decision sometimes for the greater good. And then on a bigger scale, when I got in the Army, that became more evident. And it became more of a passion. And so after I left the military, I always involved in business and leading teams and corporations and stuff like that. Thank you, Janet. The word surrender. So I'm just trying to give you a good answer here. She's asking, what does the word surrender mean to me? I might define it a different way at a different time, but right now it's giving up the fight, you know, the resistance that I had. Again, not just to the substance, but to the process, to trust the process, to walk through these steps, these efforts, humbly, openly, you know, without a major kind of chip to grind on my shoulder and all of that. Just sort of like, okay, that door is now closed for me. The drinking door is closed. That to me is when surrender is when I actually acknowledge that, not just the drinking door, but again, the maybe I'll do this. Maybe I can go sit in ceremony and do ayahuasca and whatever. If that's your thing, I'm not knocking you. I'm talking about for me. If I start sitting in ceremony, you'll see me in ceremony every Saturday night, probably pretty soon. So it won't just be a spiritual trip. So to me, it was, I guess, to answer it, Janet, it was the recognition that I'm an addict of anything mind altering, and surrendering to that and giving myself to the process and to a higher power to help me through that. And then that's where the steps could actually mean something. The first time I went through the steps, I looked at them and went, I like this one. I'll do this. Making amends sounded good to me because I'm, like, sound like you're doing something and, you got a list, you're checking it out. And that's a hard step. And I actually did it pretty thoroughly. I had never surrendered to my addiction, never surrendered to another, to a higher power, never asked for help in a real way. So thank you, Sue. Who else has questions? Please put them up. I'll look at the Q&A too. I see one in there. My wife get involved in Al-Anon. She's dabbled in it, Doreen, and she attends R2O stuff as well. And I don't want to answer for her, so maybe she can throw something in a chat. But I think Shannon's probably found more of a connection through codependency meetings in R2O. That's at least what she's told me. So. No problem, Travis. I'm happy to hang out for another few minutes if you guys have any other questions. Yeah, I guess if for anyone out there that's in early recovery, bless you, good job. And man, just grab a sponsor if you can. There's so many good people in here, and just do the work. Just get in here and do the work. I know it starts with abstinence, and I know that part kind of sucks, and, the cravings and all of that. But if you just stick with it, and if you can, part of my reason when I ask people to tell my story is just like, man, if anyone can get a shortcut, to do this earlier in life, or to, instead of stopping and then it took me 3 years to surrender to the process and even make an effort to find a community. And if you can narrow that down to a few months or a few weeks or a few days, God, that's so awesome. All right. If anyone wants to join me, we can do the Recovery 2.0 prayer. Okay. You're only going to hear me though. Universe, put us in the places you want us to be, with the people you want us to be with, doing the things you want us to do. Thank you for the joys and challenges of our lives. Amen. Satnam. Namaste. Woohoo. Thanks, guys. See you soon.